The cars rolled through the heart of the city, past curious onlookers and unsuspecting drivers. Amina stared out the window in silence, her heart thumping like a drum. She wasn't wearing a wedding dress. She hadn't danced. She hadn't even eaten. But somehow, she was now a bride. Not just any bride. The wife of Jabari Okoro. And where was he taking her? Not to a typical house. Not to some rented flat. He turned to her and said softly, "We're going home now, love. For a few days. Somewhere quiet." She nodded, unsure what that even meant. Until the car pulled into the entrance of a 5-star hotel. Not just a hotel. This place looked like a movie set. Golden gates, red carpet, flower archway, balloon letters spelling "Welcome Amina." She stepped out slowly. Her sandals touched the carpet, and for a second she wanted to pull them back. "Is this real?" she whispered. Jabari took her hand. "It is now." Then the hotel doors burst open. A group of well-dressed men clapped and shouted, "Jabari, you madman!" One of them laughed. "You turned your wedding into a prank show?" Another pointed at the crutches in the corner. "You didn't just act broke, you acted paralyzed, bro!" They were rolling with laughter. Jabari laughed too, a little embarrassed. "She didn't know," he said, nodding at Amina. One of the friends turned to her, hands on his chest. "Sister, we couldn't even say hi during the ceremony. He swore us to silence." Amina stared at them, then stared at Jabari. You made everyone act?" He stepped closer, serious now. "Yes, I had to be sure. I had to strip myself down, become someone with nothing, just to see who could love me without the title, the wealth, the name." She blinked, lips parted. "You're mad," she whispered. He smiled. A little. Then she laughed. For real this time. Her laughter echoed in the marble hallway. And for the first time in years, it wasn't forced. 2 months later, Amina stepped onto polished floors. Chandeliers sparkled above her. Roses perfumed the air. Fountains whispered in the courtyard. Home. Jabari's mansion. Their mansion. The staff lined up respectfully, but instead of walking like royalty, Jabari leaned in and whispered, "Want to turn this mansion into a playground?" Amina's smile stretched wide. Always. From that day on, everything changed. They didn't live like stiff billionaires. They played hide-and-seek behind velvet curtains. They ran around the house in socks, sliding across marble floors. "Did Madam just hide under the dining table?" one maid whispered. "I think Sir just dove into the pantry," another added. "They're in love," the cook said, smiling. "Leave them be." During breakfast, Amina would burst out laughing. Jabari would raise an eyebrow. "What now?" "I still can't believe I married a man who faked a limp for love." He'd grin. "Better than letting your madam chase me down like a lion." They'd laugh till tears ran. Some nights they danced barefoot in the garden. Other nights, they reenacted their wedding day like a comedy skit, crutches and all. And when Amina sat alone, looking around at the palace she now called home, she'd whisper, "I was made for more. I just didn't know it yet." She had gone from slippered feet to diamond shoes, from mopping floors to gliding on marble, from maid to wife, but most importantly, from invisible to deeply loved. Back in the neighborhood, word had spread faster than a cracked speaker during a power surge. Everyone was talking, from market stalls to barber shops, from tailors to church pulpits. Amina's name sat heavy on every tongue. The maid married Jabari? Not Zuri? Did you see the pictures? She's living in that mansion now? Even people who never cared suddenly had opinions. Some praised her. Others whispered insults behind cracked walls. But no one felt it deeper than Zuri. She hadn't come out of her room in days. The once proud heels sat dusty in the corner. The makeup kits were untouched. Even the big mirror she once adored now stood with a cloth thrown over it. She didn't want to see her reflection. Madame Abena walked in, holding a tray of warm tea. "Zuri, drink something. You haven't eaten." "I don't want tea," she muttered. "My daughter," Zuri snapped, I'm not your daughter. Amina's face changed. Don't you dare speak to me like— No! Zuri stood now, face puffy, hair undone. You ruined me. You said I was the only one who could win him. You mocked her every day while she stayed quiet. And look, she's wearing silk and laughing with him now. You made me believe he was mine. Madame Abena tried to recover, smoothing her wrapper. I did what any mother would do. I protected your future. By stealing hers? Zuri asked. Her voice cracked. By treating her like dirt under your shoe? Silence. Then Zuri walked past her. Out of the room. Out of the house. She needed to breathe. Elsewhere in town, Jabari and Amina walked through a quiet, open-air market, hand in hand. No security, no drivers, just two people in love. Vendors greeted them with awe, some with envy. One old woman selling okra smiled wide. Ain, see our in-law, and our own queen. Amina, you did well. You kept quiet and God made noise on your behalf. Amina blushed. Jabari chuckled, but deep down, Amina was still adjusting to kindness, to being seen, to being touched with care, not orders. You're thinking again, Jabari said, nudging her. I still feel like I'll wake up, that this will all disappear, she whispered. He stopped, looked her straight in the eyes. It's not a dream, Amina. You lived a nightmare. This is the reward. She nodded slowly, but her fingers clutched his tighter. Later that evening, as they sat on the mansion's rooftop, watching stars wink from a quiet sky, she asked him something softly. Why me? He leaned back on his elbows. Because when everyone else was performing, you were just human, real, and because you said yes to me, not knowing I had anything to offer. That's love I can trust. She smiled. And if I'd said no? He laughed. I'd probably be married to Zuri right now, watching her upload 17 engagement photos a day. Amina laughed hard. And you pretending to enjoy it? Exactly, he said. But look at us now. And they sat in silence, letting the night hold their peace. Life in the mansion wasn't quiet, not in the way people imagined rich homes to be. It wasn't full of stiff rules or hushed tones. It was loud with laughter, light with joy. Amina walked barefoot across marble floors, silk scarf half-tied, giggling as Jabari chased her through the hallways like a child. Behind the curtains, maids peeked and whispered, Is Madam hiding behind the sofa? I swear I just saw Sir crawl under the dining table. Are they okay? They're in love, the head maid Martha said with a smile. Leave them. The air in the house was different now. Not just richer, warmer, fuller. Even the staff felt it. They were no longer tiptoeing around a cold man and his ego. They were witnessing something rare. Amina's laugh echoed from the kitchen one morning during breakfast. Jabari looked up, curious. What's funny this time? She wiped tears from her eyes. I was just remembering. The look on your face when I said yes. You looked like you won the lottery. He grinned. I did. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. But you looked so pitiful. I felt sorry for you. He placed a hand over his heart. Ouch. My acting was that good? Too good, she said. I was about to call a pastor for healing prayers. They both laughed so hard that the guards outside raised eyebrows. Later that day, Jabari sat with his old friend Kwame in the garden. Kwame shook his head. You actually wore crutches, a hoodie. You Oscar-nominated yourself, bro. Jabari laughed. I needed the truth. I didn't want a wife who loved my wallet more than my words. Kwame nodded slowly. You found a good one. That girl, she's golden. Inside, Amina was talking with Martha. Is it always like this? She asked. Being this happy? Martha smiled gently. Not always. But when it comes, hold it with both hands. Amina took those words to heart, because even now part of her didn't believe it would last. She had been taught that love was work, that care came with conditions, that peace came second. But every time Jabari smiled at her without asking for anything in return, those lies faded a little more. One evening, as they sat watching old wedding footage, Amina reached out and held his hand. "You know, I never thought love would look like this." Jabari turned to her. "Like what?" "Like friendship, like peace, like being allowed to breathe." He kissed her hand. "That's because what you thought before wasn't love." She nodded. "I know that now." Then she paused. "Do you think people will ever forget I used to mop floors?" He didn't hesitate. "Why would we want them to?" She blinked. "That's what made you who you are. It's not shameful. It's strength." She smiled. No more arguments. No more doubts. And somewhere deep inside, the old Amina, the girl who scrubbed and served and slept without dreams, took her final bow. A new woman stood in her place, loved, seen, named. The days passed, golden and quiet. But like all things in life, even peace has its unfinished corners. Amina stood in front of the window one morning, watching the gardeners trim roses. She wasn't dressed in silk today. Just a simple cotton dress, barefoot, her hair wrapped in a soft scarf. She looked at ease, but inside, something tugged. She hadn't been back to that old house since the wedding. She hadn't walked those dusty streets, hadn't seen the neighbors, hadn't stood at the gate where her life was almost sold. Jabari walked in, holding a cup of ginger tea. He handed it to her, then followed her gaze. "You miss it?" he asked. She shook her head. "Number. But I need to see it. One last time." He studied her face. "Are you sure?" "Yes." The next day, they arrived in a plain car. Not the mansion vehicle. No guards. Just them. Amina stepped out slowly. Nothing about the house had changed. Same cracked walls. Same crooked gate. Same dusty path. The neighborhood kids stared, then scattered. Madame Abena opened the door before they knocked. Her eyes narrowed, then widened. Amina. And beside her, Jabari. Zuri appeared in the doorway behind her, hair still wrapped. No makeup. Just eyes full of surprise, confusion, and something else. Guilt? Amina didn't wait for an invitation. She walked in calmly. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I came to say thank you." Abena scoffed. "For what? For being thrown around like a rag?" "No," Amina said, voice firm. "For helping me discover who I really am." Zuri looked down. Jabari didn't speak. He stood at Amina's side like a silent shield. "You wanted to bury me," Amina continued. "But you were the soil. And look, I grew." Abena folded her arms. "So you've come to show off?" "No," she said. "I came to free myself. And maybe to free you too." Silence. Then Zuri stepped forward. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was jealous. I thought love was something you earned by looking a certain way. But you reminded me it's about who you are." Amina nodded once. "We all lost something. But now we can choose what we gain." She didn't wait for more words. She turned to leave. But before she reached the gate, Abena called out. Her voice, softer than it had been in years. "May your days be sweet, Amina." Amina looked back and smiled. "They already are." That night, Amina sat beside Jabari on their balcony. "Do you feel lighter?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered. "Like I've emptied an old room in my soul." He wrapped his arm around her. "Good. Now we can fill it with new things." They watched the stars appear one by one. No more secrets. No more fear. Just two people. At peace. At last. Weeks passed, then months. The house echoed with new routines, slow mornings with shared laughter, quiet afternoons reading in sunlit corners, and evenings spent barefoot in the garden. But on one particular day, the mansion stirred earlier than usual. It was Jabari's birthday. Amina tiptoed through the hallways before sunrise, whispering to the cooks, the staff, even the guards. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and her voice was light. "No noise yet," she said. "Let him sleep. Today, We surprise him. By midday, the garden had transformed. Strings of lights swayed between trees. A gentle band rehearsed near the fountain, and a long wooden table was set beneath the shade of tall palms. Jabari hadn't noticed any of it. He'd spent the morning in his study, lost in music and paperwork. But just before sunset, Amina entered with a blindfold in her hand. "What's this?" he asked. She smiled. "Trust." He didn't argue. He let her tie the cloth across his eyes. "Now walk," she said, guiding him gently, her hand resting on his chest like an anchor. When they reached the garden, she whispered, "Ready?" He nodded. She removed the blindfold. Music swelled, lights twinkled, and a chorus of voices shouted, "Happy birthday!" His jaw dropped. The staff cheered. Friends from across the city filled the garden. Even Kwame clapped from a corner, raising a bottle of wine. And at the head of it all stood Amina, in a white dress, simple, software glowing. Jabari laughed. "You did all this?" She shrugged. "I had a little help." He looked around, then back at her. "You've changed everything. My whole life." She took his hands. Number I just dusted what was already gold. Later that night, when the crowd had thinned and candles flickered low, Jabari and Amina sat near the fountain. He rested his head against hers. "So, what now?" She smiled. "Now, we live. We love. We build. And when the time comes, we pass this story on." He raised an eyebrow. "To whom?" She placed his hand gently on her belly. "To them." His eyes widened. "You're..." She nodded. "We're." He laughed. A deep, quiet laugh. The kind that comes from the center of the soul. And in that garden, under stars and soft music, their story came full circle. From forgotten to favored. From dust to diamonds. From pain to promise. Amina, once invisible, had become a name that meant more than survival. It meant grace, strength, and the kind of love that can't be bought. And Jabari? He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man who saw treasure where others saw nothing, and held on to it, not for show, but for life. If this story touched you even a little, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps more people find stories that matter. And if you want more real, heartfelt stories like this one, you never know who you might help just by clicking that button. And if you've got thoughts, feelings, or even your own story, drop it in the comments. I'm always reading, always listening. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one.